Mark Olson, he was focusing on that. He's going to lead our prayer. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mark, and we will just move on down the line from there. Again, thanks for coming out.
Good evening, I'm Mark Olson. I'm the Sac County Chair, and welcome. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together tonight to hear questions and answers from our candidates. Help us to be discerning and to be clear and to be understanding of what everyone has to say. And help this evening to bless you in all that we do. These things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I will say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove your hat and place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. A couple quick notes before we get started. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off or on to vibrate. We don't want Braley to have an advantage by listening in tonight. And so please shut them off. The second, how old are you, sweetheart? Are you mom? Oh my word. I mean, The Voice. Anybody watch the show The Voice? She's The Voice. I mean, you're amazing. Holy cow. I want to thank the Chair Zach, Ida, and Chair Keith for putting on this event. I'm going to just kind of review the rules quick. Each candidate is going to have 3 individualized questions, which they will have 90 seconds to answer. At 30 seconds, the timekeeper will hold the time signal upside down. At 10 seconds, he will hold it right side up. And when you go over, he will give you the cut. And so that's kind of the plan for tonight. We're going to have 1-minute opening statements from each candidate. We'll do the opening statements in reverse alphabetical order. And then we'll have 3-minute closing statements in alphabetical order. No one has seen the questions. They were all written by folks in this room tonight and went through, Jamie Johnson, myself, and Brad Hayward from the Journal went through and reviewed the questions. So this should be a fun and open debate, and it's things that you guys want to know the answers to. And so we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with the opening statement. David Young, you will be first.
Everybody hear me? Okay. Good evening. It's so great to be here. What a great night. Thanks for coming out here. There's a lot of other things you could be doing, but you're here. I'm David Young from Van Meter. I was born and raised there, and I live there today. That's in Dallas County. In 1881, though, my great-great-great-grandparents came from Germany to Pocahontas County, and they farmed and worked on the railroad, and they built a church, and they came out here because of opportunity and the American dream, and those God-given rights enshrined in our nation's most sacred documents. And so, eventually, the folks got down to Van Meter, opened up Young's Cafe in Van Meter. My mom and dad met there. I started out at Unisvista College and went to Drake University. In the past 7 years, I have been Senator Grassley's Chief of Staff, and it's been an honor to serve and work alongside him for Iowa. And I've seen the dysfunction of D.C. up close, and it is ugly, and I'm ready to attack it with a big stick. Thank you.
Well, thank you. My name is Matt Whitaker. I'm running for the United States Senate. I grew up in Ankeny, which is east of here, not too far though. And I had the great fortune when I was a senior in high school that Wade Fry offered me a full ride football scholarship to play for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I used that scholarship to not only play football and be an academic and All-American and be on the last Rose Bowl team in Iowa, but I met my wife Marcy at Iowa, and I got my MBA, my law degree, and including my undergraduate. Since I graduated from the University of Iowa, my life has taken two tracks. One is as a small business owner and entrepreneur, and the second is as the presidentially appointed United States Attorney for the Southern District of Iowa, where I was the federal prosecutor for the southern half of Iowa and prosecuted important crimes like internet, child predators, guns, drugs, and illegal immigration. So these issues that we're going to talk about tonight, either as a small business owner or as a federal prosecutor, they're not abstract to me. They're issues I've dealt with and have experience with. Thank you.
Just an announcement. Press the mic until you see the green light. That means that it's hot, it's ready for you to speak.
I can get feedback. Good evening. My name is Scott Shaven. I'm running for United States Senate. I have one thing in common with many of you in the room here tonight. I was born and raised in western Iowa. The first town that I lived in until I was 6 years old, much like many of you, I lived in a town without a police force. However, we were able to govern ourselves. When I was 6 years old, my family moved to Carroll so that I could my dad wanted us kids to have a Catholic education. I did kindergarten through 12th grade in Carroll, and I graduated from Carroll Kemper. After high school, I enlisted in the Navy, and I served 6 years as an enlisted sailor, and I did the operation and maintenance of the Tomahawk cruise missile. I was honorably discharged, and I went to college at Iowa State where I got my degree in marketing. From there, I went to work, much like the rest of you guys, in the private sector. Last winter, I realized the importance of this election. Day one on the job is the last 2 years of the most dangerous administration of our lives. As soon as you complete that task, you have the first term of the next President of the United States. We need to have a common person representing the Main Street, Iowa. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Joni Ernst, and I'm a Republican running for Senate. And I am running because as a mother, I want to ensure that our government is creating an environment that helps grow our economy and grow jobs. I want to protect my children's future, your children's future. So again, government should not be creating jobs, but creating an environment that creates jobs. I'm also running because as a soldier, a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and a battalion commander still serving in the Iowa Army National Guard, I understand the significance of a strong national defense. And I'm also running because as a conservative, I value innocent life. I do believe in traditional marriage, and I understand that the Second Amendment is more than just words on a piece of paper. I do believe I bring the greatest contrast between myself and Bruce Braley, and I'm ready to beat him next November. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Sam Clovis, I'm running for the United States Senate. Sharon and I drove down here tonight. The reason we drove is because we didn't think we'd be able to get our private airplane into the Ida Grove Airport. I thought it would be good to have our event out there, so I thought we would come here. Many of you know who I am. This is pretty much home territory for me. I was raised in Kansas. I went to the Air Force Academy, served 25 years in the Air Force, ran successful businesses all over the country with reach all over the world. I've signed the front of checks as well as the back of checks. I've done a lot of other things in this life, including getting a great degree from the Air Force Academy, an MBA, and a doctorate in public administration from the University of Alabama. And I think this is about service, and I do think this is about contrast. And I think it's going to be very important for you to comparison shop and to make sure that you find the person you trust the most and someone that you know will be a fighter for you on the floor of the United States Senate. Not only will they vote right, but they will fight for you. Thank you.
Tonight's first question is for Matt Whitaker. Matt, if you oppose Obamacare, greetings. If you oppose Obamacare, what would you suggest we replace it with?
Sure, Obamacare is the worst bill passed in the history of our country. And it's not just a bad website, it's a bad law, it's bad policy. And so what we need to do is replace it with the things that have always worked in the United States of America. And that includes things like free enterprise and competition. And some of the ideas that we will replace Obamacare with are things like allowing small businesses to band together to buy health insurance as a larger group, or to allow the sale of health insurance across state lines, so that state insurance commissioners don't restrict what's available to folks in their own state. So those are two ideas. And then there's several other ideas. The thing that frustrates me the most is one of the greatest things is the health savings account. And I know many of you probably have been on health savings accounts, and allows younger workers to save when they'll use more health care. But this administration has continued to wind back health savings accounts to a point now where it's almost not a meaningful opportunity. And so there are free market competition ideas that we can bring to eliminate, once we eliminate Obamacare, which I know everybody in this room agrees with me, needs to be eliminated. It is a long-term, permanent, negative, wet blanket on our economy. And once we eliminate that, we'll bring some free market ideas and competition that will solve not only health insurance challenges we face, but the health care and health issues we face in the country.
Next question is for Sam Clovis. Sam, America has a $17 trillion debt. What do you plan to do specifically in 1 6-year term to solve this problem?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure who we vote for is the leadership of the United States Senate. I think we need to change the leadership of the United States Senate. So on January, whenever that is, 2015, I'm going to go onto the floor of the Senate and make sure that vote goes to a leader other than the one we have right now. That's the first thing. The second thing that will help sponsor legislation will freeze spending. I'm a fair tax guy. I think we need to get a fair tax in place, which is a tax on consumption and not production. Barring that, I think we need to lower the corporate tax rate from the highest in the developed world to the lowest. My mark is 10%. I'd like to see that done. I'd also like to see 10% tax on the money that's repatriated from overseas. This gives businesses the reasons to bring their jobs back to the United States and get the workforce that we have sitting on the sidelines right now back into the game. Because right now we have around 16 million people that need to be put to work between now and the end of my first 6-year term. The other things we want to do is get rid of the death tax, which threatens many of you in here because of your farms and everything that we have there. And also, we need to remove all of the issues associated with putting a drag on this economy. That includes the regulations that are coming out right now from this administration, and above all, we have to repeal Obamacare no matter when that is, because that is a drag on this economy, and it must be pulled out by the roots, and we must start over.
Scott Shaver. Scott, would you specifically define and explain your position on marriage?
That's a great question, Cody, thank you for asking me that. Gay marriage is something that we as a party need to address. As a Senate candidate, as somebody who wants to win this seat for the Republican Party, we have to focus our attention on the right issues. We can't give the Democrats any bait. Gay marriage is something that the Senate has already passed the Defense of Marriage Act. That was just struck down by the Supreme Court. We have to respect that. We may not agree with it, but we have to respect the decision of the Supreme Court, their opinion. On the state level, we can do as we see fit. We can work our way on the state level to pass a marriage amendment here on the state, but at the federal level, we have to focus our attention on stuff we can control. We have to focus our attention on fixing the debt. We have to focus our attention on protecting our Second Amendment. We also have to focus our attention on repealing the Affordable Care Act. If we allow the Democrats to attack us on this issue, on something that we're not going to have a lot of control over, we will lose this election. So we have to focus, through this campaign, we need to focus on the right stuff with the budget, the Second Amendment, and the Affordable Care Act. That's the message that we can win on. We need to expand our party. Chasing people out of our party is not going to expand our party, and will only hurt us in future elections. Thank you.
Next question is for David Young. David, everyone says you are likable, but question is whether or not you have the grit to do what it takes to say no to your party leadership. Can you give a specific example where, as Senator Grassley's Chief of Staff, you helped lead him in a decision against party leadership?
Is this on? Yes. Let's talk about that amendment during the Affordable Care Act, where Senator Grassley said, you know, if you're going to pass this on the American people, we're going to have to abide by it too, members of Congress and staff. And there was a lot of folks beating back on Senator Grassley and myself, because I was working that amendment with other chiefs of staff on both sides of the aisle saying, it's just a matter of integrity and credibility. We're going to pass it on them, we got to live by it. And so that's what I did. And it wasn't easy. Got a lot of blowbacks, a lot of angry voicemails. And look what happened. It did pass. But then look what the president did, along with John Boehner and along with Harry Reid. They waived it. But we stuck to our guns, and we went up against our leadership and the Democrat leadership, and we got that passed. Unfortunately, we have a president and some of his minions and some folks in Congress who didn't like it and didn't think that they had to live by the rules that you had to live by, and they reneged on that. That's where I stood up to my leadership and the other party as well.
Next question is for Joni Ernst. Joni, in the state Senate, initially you favored the gas tax, but when you made a decision to run for the United States Senate, your view on this particular issue changed. Can you explain why?
Yes, absolutely, thank you. And yes, and how's this for a non-political answer? I wish I could have that committee vote back. I do. I understand that we do need to do something about our infrastructure, especially in rural Iowa. It is very important that we do that. But in becoming engaged in this race, I've had the opportunity to visit with other people that have had the same situation. One of those being Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska, who also sat on her transportation committee in the Nebraska Senate, or in the unicameral. So their solution in Nebraska was to take an already existing portion of their existing sales tax and dedicate it to their infrastructure, to their roads and bridges. So I know that there are other means of finding a way to support our infrastructure without raising the taxes. So yes, I do not favor the fuel tax at this time. I think that we can find a better way to fund our infrastructure without raising taxes on hardworking Iowans. Thank you.
Next question is for Matt Whitaker. Matt, can you explain your position on Common Core, specifically any federal mandated curriculum?
I'm against it. Listen, Common Core, and everybody in this room knows
that this is probably one of the many points of differentiation, one of the distinctions you're going to have to draw between the candidates on the stage. I think we were at a forum on Saturday, and all of us said that we were opposed to Common Core, and that's the right thing to do. A one-size-fits-all government program doesn't work. It doesn't educate our kids. It doesn't allow them to achieve. It doesn't allow our teachers to teach individual students. It treats them like part of the collective, just a cog in the machine of our government. And I am against that. I'm opposed to one-size-fits-all federal solutions. I believe the beauty of our system, whether it's in education or healthcare or anywhere else, is allowing the 50 states to innovate and to compete. Because that is what our system is supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a federal government where 5,000 bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. think they know better how to educate my own kids than I do, or their mother. I mean, that is what this Common Core is about, and I will oppose it at every turn. I look forward to this next legislative session where hopefully our state Senate and our state House will make it very clear that Iowa will not adopt Common Core curriculum as part of our education.
Next question is for Sam. Clovis. Sam, can you explain where your line in the sand would be on Iran's nuclear ambition, and what would your position toward Israel be?
First off, I think we crossed my line with Iran already. I think that we would have had we had proper leadership in the White House and in the United States Senate, we would have already taken measures to deconstruct the system. We could do it either through negotiation or we could do it kinetically, and you can read that any way you wish. My view on Israel is that Israel is one of the bastions of democracy in the world. It ought to be defended. It is our friend. It is our ally. I've been working with the people of Israel and the armed forces of Israel for the last 30 years. I still have a strong relationship with members of the Israeli Defense Force, that I still am asked and comment on situations that go on in Israel and all of the things that they're faced with over there. But my line in the sand with Iran has already been crossed. And I think that we should, at some point, figure out a way to go in there and deconstruct their nuclear capability and do it in a way that is dramatic and final. And I am not kidding. I think this is one of the most serious threats to the entire world, not just to Israel, not just to the Middle East, but to the United States. And our national interests are at risk because of what we have squandered away in all of our time with this administration in that part of the world.
Scott, can you comment on the Ted Cruz filibuster and what you thought it did to either benefit or damage the party?
The Ted Cruz filibuster was good for him, it was good for the party. A lot of people disagree with his filibuster. Myself, I have no opinion on it either way. I support him. I think it was very noble of him to stand up for 21 hours and do the filibuster, but at the very end, I think we had to go into it knowing that it wasn't going to, that the net outcome was still going to be the same. It did draw attention, and at the end of the day, it drew attention to both the Affordable Care Act and the national debt. And the national debt is something we can't mess with. I always tell people, just today I was visiting with somebody at a bank, and I said, look, if somebody walked into your bank and they were making $29,000 a year, and they were spending $36,000, and they were already $170,000 in debt, how much money would your bank give them? And the guy said nothing. Well, you add a bunch of zeros to that, folks. We take in $2.9 trillion, we're spending $3.6 trillion, and we're already $17 trillion in debt. So while it was not successful at the time, it was great that, in the sense that it drew a lot of attention to it. And we have to support people that will draw attention to stuff, and people that will go up and fight a losing battle. Because at the end of the day, at least it draws attention to it, and at least it lets people know that there are people out there looking at every different angle. Thank you.
Question for David Young. David, can you please name specific things you would do to ensure justice for the Benghazi victims?
I would, Senator Lindsey Graham is doing something that I highly endorse. He is threatening to hold up all nominations to make sure that the Benghazi victims can come before a committee and talk about what actually happened. We have an attorney general and we have a president who doesn't want this to come out for fear of what actually happened. And if you remember, we also had a Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, who threw up her arms and said during a hearing, "What difference does it make?" she said. I tell you what, it makes all the difference in the world, folks, what happened over there. It makes a difference because of truth, so it'll never happen again, and the family of those 4 victims, they need to know what happened to their loved ones. And so I would go down to the Senate floor, and I would work with others, and I know there are other members out there who would like to shut the Senate floor down to make sure that this does not go unnoticed. We have to find the truth, and I would use the power and the tools of the Senate, holding nominations, delaying, filibustering, whatever it took to get truth out, taking advantage of those Senate tools to shame those who did wrong to those patriots.
Next question is for Joni Ernst. Joni, this is a question from a female in the audience. It appears in the last election that the Republican Party lost the majority of votes from women and other minority groups. What would you do to get back the majority vote from women specifically, and do you feel being the only female in the race helps you achieve that?
Well, thank you. That's a great question, I guess. I do think that we have to do something to capture the minority vote, the female vote. So many of those demographics did vote for Democrats in the last election. And it is simply, what I bring that back to is simply making sure that we are listening to those demographics and going out and visiting with those demographics. For too often, we have pushed them away simply by not going to them and explaining what our message is. So my message, I am a mom, but I am a soldier and I am a conservative. And explaining those things to people will help bring that demographic in. I think we need to break it down and make sure that they understand what the Republican message is and how it's impacting their families, their lives, their careers. Those things are very important to people. We can't talk about big numbers up here. We have to explain why this is bad for their family, why this is bad for their children and grandchildren, what the debt is doing, what Obamacare is doing, and make sure that we're taking into consideration their thoughts and their values. Do I think it helps me as being a female? I think it does because I care about people and I can express that. And I think people respond very well to that. Thank you.
Question for Matt. Matt, can you discuss and explain your views on the ethanol mandate?
Sure. It's been in the news recently, and I know there are groups that want an immediate reduction. The EPA has come out and trying to winnow back the ethanol mandate. But the bottom line is that this is what always happens in Iowa and in Iowa politics. Is interest groups always try to put ethanol on the table and say, what are you going to do about this? And we cannot talk about ethanol or the mandate or any subsidies unless we talk about all of our energy policy. And really, the bottom line is that we continue to have programs like wind or oil and gas exploration or other things that are always seen as this, we just need to get this over the hump. And we need to, one more year. And if we get one more year, then we'll be competitive. And the bottom line is, we need an all-of-the-above energy approach. And as I would describe that all-of-the-above energy approach, is certainly you would not take ethanol, put it on the table, and get rid of its advantages that it currently has under the federal regulatory scheme. But at the same time, if you're going to talk about ethanol, let's put everybody else's subsidy on the table. Well, let's reduce all subsidies. Because right now, we're spending almost $700 billion more than we're taking in on a yearly basis, and have $17 trillion in debt. We have to make tough choices. And as Americans, instead of saying, well, you should cut that guy's subsidies and not mine, We need to take an all-of-the-above approach. We need to say, we need a level playing field and let the best technology and let innovation take over and lead us into the 21st century.
Next question is for Sam Clovis. Sam, looking at it from a founding father perspective, how do you feel they would get us out of the current economic and moral mess that we are in?
I think they were very clear, going back as far as the 1750s. If you look at what Ben Franklin talked about, and a lot of the things he brought forward into the Declaration of Independence and then into the Constitution. The Declaration gives us the why of our nation, and the Constitution gives us the how. And we have not followed the how very well. We need to confine Congress inside the enumerated powers. It's very clear that they're operating outside. We have a president that's operating outside the Constitution. In fact, our own congressman here, Steve King, whom I have a chance to converse with quite often, talked about this very issue, and the fact that the president is well outside his authority, particularly when it comes to modifying the Affordable Care Act. We need to get rid of the influence of special interest. Special interest is corrupting this government like now at no other time in our history. This is one of the reasons that we must take a hard look at people who are going to run for office and people who are interested in doing what is best for this nation rather than what is best for them. This is one of the things that we have run into over and over again. Special interest, whether it be ethanol or oil or coal or whomever. The whole issue here is the special interest is trying to drive the status quo. They don't want this system to change. They want you to support the status quo. The establishment is out here identifying things and people that we ought to support because they want you not to have a say in what's going on in this country. So the founders would say that factions in Federalist 10, if you want to know specifically, that's where we need to go. Thank you very much.
Next question is for you. Do you describe yourself as Tea Party or as a conservative or as an establishment conservative? And how do you feel, and how do you feel the Tea Party and the establishment conservatives can work together to elect all Republicans?
That's a great question, Cody. A lot of times I walk into events, and that addresses a big thing that's going on right now within our party. A lot of times I walk into events and people say, hey, are you the Tea Party candidate? Are you the person that's the establishment candidate? Are you the evangelical? And I look at them with a puzzled look and I say, I'm Scott Shaven. I want to bring our party together. And different parts of our party that are separate, I'm the candidate that focuses on the things that we do agree upon. There's 28 planks in the Republican Party of Iowa. If you agree with me on 27 of the 28 planks, we agree 96% of the time. There's 412 sub-planks to the Republican Party of Iowa. If we agree on 402 out of the 412, now we agree 98% of the time. On the things that we can win on this election, I'm the one that takes the charge. I'm the only person in this race to talk about past insolvency. You pass a balanced budget amendment, you're still $17 trillion in debt, you're still paying $200 billion a year in interest. I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. That is something that we have to protect. The Democratic candidate wants to go at it at every angle. On the last time of gun legislation, he voted against it, not to represent the people of Iowa, but because it didn't go far enough. That's something that we need to hold him accountable for. He also prides himself in supporting the Affordable Care Act, and that is something that everybody in this room agrees needs to go. Thank you.
Next question is for you, David. You mentioned in your opening statements that you've seen the beast up close. What specific budget programs would you cut to balance the budget?
Wow, where do you begin, Cody? My goodness. I mean, there's departments, there are programs, there's so many duplicative programs and almost agencies that you can just get rid of. But just one off the top of my mind, the United Nations dues we pay. Cutting a quarter out of those by 1/4, that's $2 billion. You know, the federal government is starting to buy up more and more federal lands. We need to start, you know, selling those off and saving $3 billion a year. Of course, selling them to the private sector in Americans, but, you know, the EPA is not something I'm too happy about. I would use the powers of oversight to make sure that the EPA got rid of their drone program that flew over family farms, and that they got rid of their regulating dust program. And now they want to start talking about all that little water that comes into your ditch out farms. They want to turn that into a takings and make that an inland waterway. I get rid of Common Core. I mean, where do you start? I make sure the IRS got out of healthcare, but there are agencies, so many commissions. I don't know where to start, but you could. I don't know how many you would have to get rid of to start balancing the budget, but we need a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, and we need to change the way we budget, getting away from baseline budgeting, where we just throw money at agencies and departments, and go to zero-based budgeting, where we make departments come up to Congress and beg and justify for every dollar. Let's hear Eric Holder come up and beg for money for a Fast and Furious program where he's selling guns to drug lords in Mexico. Let's find out what's going on with our taxpayer dollars, because it's your money. It is your money, folks, and I will watch your dollar.
Next question is for Joni Ernst. Joni, what is your opinion specifically on the Council of Foreign Relations and the eroding of American sovereignty via the United Nations?
The United Nations is horrible, and I believe at one point they probably had a purpose. But the United Nations has long since seen its usefulness here in the United States of America. There are so many things that the United Nations has come forward with that we as Americans simply can't agree and is not in the best interest of the United States of America. A gentleman and I were just discussing the UN weapons treaty, the weapons ban treaty. And what a horrible idea for the United States of America. And why would we engage in something like that? Agenda 21, we had a great forum on Saturday. All of us agreed that Agenda 21 is a horrible idea. And I'm sure most of you have followed that. And what are those implications to Americans? And again, going back to what does it do to an individual family here in the state of Iowa? And what I've seen, the implications we could have here, is moving people off of their agricultural land and consolidating them into city centers, and then telling them that you don't have property rights anymore. These are all things that the UN is behind, and it's bad for the United States. It's bad for families here in the state of Iowa. Thank you.
Our last question of the night, I'd like each of you to answer. And we'll start at Sam's end and move down to David. As you look at your competition in the Republican Party primary, what specific issues do you think make you stand out from your competition?
I think, great question, and I think it's an opportunity for us to start to differentiate ourselves. I think based mostly on the fact that I've accomplished a great deal. I've done a lot of things. One of my friends tells me my life is not anything that's been written in chapters. And because I started out as a young kid working on the farm, I went off to the Service Academy, spent 25 years serving this nation, went into the business world, very successful businessman. I've got more education, became a college professor. I had the opportunity to go back and become part of working at a think tank, and I've been involved in all these activities, and with all these things, I have international experience. I've actually worked with the State Department, the United Nations, and done a lot of those things. So I think what differentiates me from the rest is the depth and breadth of my experience and background that I have, and all of those factors that come into play when it comes time to decide on who the next senator is going to be. And then you have to take a look at which one of these people up here is going to be the most resolute, which one is going to be that warrior on the floor of the Senate, which one's going to do the bare-knuckle fighting, which one's not going to be afraid to not only vote right every time, but to fight for you every chance that they get, because that's what this is about, doing what's best for the country, and not just necessarily what the establishment wants. And I think this is really clearly where I make a break from the rest of the pack here, is because of all of those things, and my experience and the willingness to go in and do this based on the fact that I support term limits, and that's it. Thanks.
I think there are a number of things that differentiate me from the other folks in the race. The first is that I am an elected official, and I was a county auditor before I went to the state senate. And I have had to fight those battles already. So I do have a proven record in the state senate. Some would say that's a disadvantage, but I say I would put my conservative record up against Bruce Braley's any day of the week. And I've been proud, as well as our representatives here tonight, to be part of the largest tax cut in Iowa history, which is saving Iowa taxpayers and businesses $4.4 billion over the next 10 years. We're also growing jobs here in the state of Iowa. I think these are wonderful records to have, and I'm proud to be a part of that. I have had to say no on occasion to a number of things that have been proposed by the establishment. And I do that in the state senate. So I'm not afraid to do that. I've served my country. I've served my community. I teach Sunday school and confirmation. I live in the same community that I grew up in. I care about Iowa. I care about the United States of America. And I know, out of all the candidates, I can beat Bruce Braley. So again, I would love to have your support next June and again in November. Thank you very much.
Hello. One of the biggest things that's going to separate me from the rest of the people is my background and my successes in the private sector. I was born and raised in western Iowa. I've always been a registered voter in the state of Iowa, and every year that I've paid taxes, I've filled out an Iowa tax form. I tell people that I'm bilingual. I can speak the language of employer and employee in the same breath. The first job I had was sweeping floors, and I worked my way up from there. As a sailor, I was an enlisted sailor. I had a blue collar there. I left the Navy and I got myself a college degree. When I was doing sales, I started on the sales floor, and I worked my way up to management. When I got out of the Navy, first thing people told me was, you need to get yourself a government job. You need to get yourself a job at the post office. You need to get yourself a job with the government. I ran away from those people. I did not want to have a job in the government. I did not want to have to become a government employee for my entire life. I wanted to achieve success in the private sector, like many of you here tonight. I didn't want to become what they call a lifer. This opportunity came open, and everybody says, we want to have a common person. Why doesn't an average, everyday person run? And I said, you know what? Here's the time. We don't have an incumbent. All of our 8 top tier, our A-list Republicans have left. I didn't want to wake up on June 4th and be told, here's the candidate you're voting for. I wanted to have an option. I wanted to have somebody that represented me. And I feel that I'm the person that does represent you. And as this campaign goes along, you guys will see that. Thank you very much for your time.
Let me acknowledge that all the folks here on the stage make a very good case and are much better and will be better U.S. senators than Bruce Braley. There is no doubt about it, and I know you all agree with me. And I respect each and every one of them for sitting up here on stage and making their argument as to why they should represent you in the United States Senate. And you know what? They're very persuasive. And now, the only thing I would say is what I mentioned in my opening, and that is, as a small business owner, and I own several businesses. I own a daycare in my hometown of Ankeny. I own a little trailer shop in Adel, and a couple other interests, including my law firm that I practice at. And I am involved in the economy. I've created jobs. I've signed the front of the check. And I understand that the policies coming out of Washington, D.C. are killing jobs, they're hurting families, and we need to send somebody, a principled fighter, to Washington, D.C. to roll this thing back. I also understand, as the United States Attorney for 5.5 years under President Bush, I visited the border. I saw them pull illegal immigrants out of the trunks of cars. I see that our border is under assault on a daily basis. I see that our families and our community is under assault. And I want to fight for you. I have taken term limit pledge. I would only serve 12 years because I believe in the basic fundamental premise that the United States government should be citizen legislators that are in the real world, go to Washington, D.C., and then live under the laws they pass after they're done serving. Because it should not be a career in politics. It should be public service. I want to be your United States Senator. My name is Matt Whitaker. I appreciate your support.
I'm 45 years old. The last 7 years of my life have been the best years of my life because I have been working for Iowa already in the United States Senate, penetrating our government, which has run amok, folks. You know it and I know it. It's run amok. And every day the past 7 years, being on the phone with Iowans and in meetings with Iowans, whether it's farmers who have the EPA coming down their back, or on the phone with folks who the IRS is coming down on them, I know how to penetrate the government and have done it time and time again for Iowans. And so I can be effective right away in doing so. And I know the rules of the Senate and who to work with and who not to work with, folks. And I'll keep my eye on those folks also within the executive branch, playing around with rules and regulations. I know where to look to see what's coming down the pike, to warn Iowans and my fellow members about what's coming down and where the fight needs to be. So I am ready to serve you. I've been working for you in the United States Senate. I will hit the ground running right away, and I will come home every weekend. And I will not be part of the cocktail set and the TV set on Sunday mornings. I've had a great mentor in Senator Grassley who's taught me how to listen to people, how to stand your ground, how to be principled, how to fight for common sense, and how you can be a man of faith and not sell out in Washington, D.C. And I'll keep my faith to the good Lord and to Iowa every day. Thank you.
That ends the question portion of tonight's forum. At this point, we'll begin with the closing statement, then we'll start again at this end with Sam Clovis. You have 3 minutes to make your closing pitch. Sam.
Thank you very much, and thanks for holding this event tonight, and to the 3 counties that put this together, and thanks to my competition up here. The good news is that we're all friends, and we do get along great, and I think it's going to be hard for you to make a choice come next June. I want to make sure that we understand one thing. This is about the Constitution of the United States. This is about the law of the land, supreme law of the land, and to serve that Constitution. The Constitution is an idea. It's not a person. It's not a group of people. It's a concept. It's something brought together by someone a long time ago, thousands of years ago. The notion of the Constitution was introduced, and that Constitution is about how we order our society. It is about a covenant that we have between us, among ourselves, and between us and our government. You must decide on the next person to send to Washington, D.C., if you're a U.S. Senator. You must decide who that person is, and will they defend this Constitution as if their life and your lives depend on it. I wear a ring on my hand. This ring was given to me by my father, June 26, 1967, when I stood at the base of the ramp, the United States Air Force Academy, and within a few minutes, I swore my first oath to the Constitution as a cadet. He told me that morning, when he handed me this ring, he said, "This is my ring, this is from the United States Air Force. I had this with me on every mission I was on during World War II. I had it with me when I was in Korea. I want you to have this ring because someday you'll understand what service is about. This is about service." I had that ring with me every single day I was a cadet, and every mission I flew in the United States Air Force, I had that ring on my person, along with the New Testament my mother had given me. When I left the service, I retired the ring in the New Testament. And here recently, one of our friends, Brett Hayworth, who's here tonight, asked me to look at some archives, get some pictures, and I found the ring. My wife Charlotte, who's with me here tonight, she said, you need to get that ring polished and fitted, because you need to wear that ring. And when I got it done, I brought it home and I put it on, and she said, this is why you must wear this ring. You must wear this ring to honor your father and your brother and all of the other veterans who have served this great nation, and you must wear this for the service that you have given and for the service you have yet to give. I've been twice the speed of sound. I've seen the curve of the earth. I've been 1,000 miles an hour this far off the ground. And I'm married to the love of my life. They have nothing in Washington, D.C. to turn my head, because I have everything I need here in the state of Iowa. I wish you all the best as you go forward. I want you to support me, samclovis.com, and I want you to pay particular attention to the candidates that we have up here on the stage. Thanks so much, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. It really has been a pleasure, and thank you to all of our candidates here. We really have had a good go of it. When I was a young child growing up in southwest Iowa on a farm, I wanted to be in second grade. I wanted to be a mother, I wanted to be Miss America, and I wanted to be a farmer's wife, just like my mom was. None of those things happened except being a mother, but I'm very proud of my accomplishments. And the first is that I am a mom. I have 3 absolutely beautiful daughters and 6 grandchildren, and I have a very supporting husband, and we all live here in the state of Iowa. And as a mother, I am concerned about what their future holds. I don't believe that they have the same opportunities going forward right now as I had when I was a small girl on that muddy farm. That's why I want to go to the United States Senate, is to protect their opportunities. My children, your children, my grandchildren, and your grandchildren. Now, I didn't become Miss America, but I did become a soldier. And I've taken that oath many times over. I've served in the United States Army Reserve, and I've served in the Iowa Army National Guard. I am the only combat veteran up here on this stage. I spent a long year deployed overseas, driving convoys throughout Kuwait and southern Iraq. And I haven't seen the curve of the earth, and I'm glad that others have. But I've been right there with my soldiers, in the dust and the dirt and the sand, defending what this United States means. I am very proud of their accomplishments. We have some of the best soldiers here in the state of Iowa, and that's why I'm running for United States Senate. Lastly, I'm running for United States Senate because I am a conservative, and I have a proven conservative record. This is not just talk for me. I have demonstrated it on the floor of the state Senate. We have had many accomplishments in the last 3 years, many, many accomplishments, even though we have a Democratic majority in the state Senate. And you know why that is? It's because we've been willing to work together without compromising our principles. And that's what our federal government needs to learn to do, is to work and move forward without compromising our principles. So as a conservative, that's why I'm running for United States Senate. I do know that I can beat Bruce Braley, and he has to go. We don't need him in Congress. We don't need him in the United States Senate. And I am going to be the person that brings that man down. I am Joni Ernst. I'm a Republican, and I'm running for United States Senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. I'd like to echo the sentiments of Matt, and I will say, anybody on this stage would be a better candidate to defeat Bruce Braley. Let me reiterate, anybody on this stage would be a better candidate to defeat Bruce Braley. I'd also like to reiterate to Sam that I've also seen the curvature of the earth from this far above might have been one deck above the water line. And if anybody else has out there been on the high seas, you can agree with me, that is the most beautiful thing right before sunrise. We're in the heart of the 4th Congressional District. We are sitting tonight in an area where people value a straight shooter. We are sitting tonight in the Congressional District of the biggest straight shooter in the House of Representatives. While you may not agree with me on everything, you have to agree that I'm a straight shooter, and I'm going to tell you where I stand. I ask you to please value that. Every piece of my literature has remained the same from day one, except for the typos that I've fixed, and I'm working on those. I'm too cheap. That's my fiscal conservative coming out. Lastly, the first trip that I made in my campaign was to a county fair. It was not to Washington, D.C. I'm out here to meet you folks, and I'm out here to let you know who I am. I'm just like one of you. I'm a lifelong resident of the state of Iowa, and I'm here to represent the state of Iowa. People have said, why can't a normal person run? Now is our time, folks. We have to look beyond us in the room. We have to look beyond us in the state of Iowa. Folks, this primary is going to send a very, very big message to the United States of America, because whoever wins this nomination will end up becoming the face of the Republican Party, like it or not. Day one on the job is the last 2 years of the most dangerous administration. As soon as you complete that task, you get the entire first term of the next president. Here we are, Iowans. This is your chance for your voice to be heard. You have 5 great people up here. And trust me, and believe me when I say this, whoever does win this nomination will become the face of the Republican Party. So we have to decide which way we want to go. I'm the candidate that's looking to unite the party, and I'm the candidate that's looking to expand the party. We have 620,000 registered Republicans, 620,000 registered Democrats, and there's 700,000 registered independents. That's 700,000 people that at the moment say they don't want to be Republican or Democrat. That's 700,000 people that we can pull over to our party. Now is our opportunity. I believe I'm the candidate that can do that for you. My name is Scott Shaven, and please remember me June 3rd.
Thank you for everyone here from Sac County and Ida County and Cherokee County. I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of our unique system of government and the way we elect our representatives. Does everybody know in this room where our rights come from? Our rights come from God, and they are secured by the Constitution. That Constitution has never changed except when it was amended, pursuant to its rules and the way it sets up amendments to it. That Constitution has been discussed year over year. And that Constitution, even in the 1700s, when Hamilton and Madison were arguing over what it meant and what Article 1, Section 8 stood for, Hamilton wanted an expansive federal government, more of a federal system. You may know sort of now, 230-some years later, what that federal system looks like. Madison vetoed laws for the sole purpose that they weren't available under the Constitution. That is the lens, as a United States Senator, I will view every law, not whether it is good for the common folks in Iowa, but whether first, is it constitutional? Is it allowed under our Constitution for the federal government to do this act that it seeks to either do or regulate or otherwise? Because guess what? For over 200 years, the Hamiltonians have won. And we need to get a little Madison in the United States Senate to join the other Madisonians that are already starting this fight in Washington, D.C., and take back our country. And for you, as voters in the state of Iowa, you're going to have to decide not only who's the most qualified candidate, we all present some very unique qualifications, but you need to find the candidate that has the energy and the fight to join the fight that has already begun in Washington, D.C. I am that candidate. I want to be a constitutional conservative and a voice for the American people and Iowans to take our country back. Because you know what? For 237 years, not one day, not a single day has the strength of our country been its government. The strength of America today, as it has always been, is the people of the United States of America. And it is time for the people to rise up and take our country back. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt Whitaker. I would appreciate your vote on June 3rd in the primary. I'd also appreciate your vote tonight in the straw poll. Because I want to be your citizen servant that goes to Washington, D.C. and represents you. Thank you.
I don't know about you folks, but I love this. This is part of the process. We're the men and women in the arena, and you're the jury, basically. And this is what it's all about. We have the greatest system out there. It's not perfect, but this republic is awesome. And it was God-inspired. My family came out here. I'm a sixth-generation Iowan, like I said, and this part of the state is very, very special to me, being that I still have relatives in Pocahontas County, and they all came out in 1881 because that American dream we've all talked about, and that opportunity. And that's why we're running. That's why I'm running. We want to make sure that American dream is there for that next generation. It has to be there. I've been to all 99 counties already since I got in this race, and I'm doing it again, and I love it. And I tell you what I've learned. I've learned that we have the best people out there. Such good people, hard-working people, great values, God-fearing. And I tell you what else I learned. I learned that Bruce Braley does not represent this state. And we cannot let him go to the United States Senate, folks. He is more liberal than Tom Harkin, if you thought that could be true. He's former head of the Iowa Trial Lawyers Association, and he gave the closing argument on the House floor on Obamacare just before he handed off the torch to Nancy Pelosi to pass the bill that they had to pass so they could figure out what was in it after they read it, You know the drill, and now this is what we get. Bruce Braley also wants to sue gun manufacturers when there are crimes. He's against repealing the death tax and the estate tax. We need those farms to stay in the family, those small businesses to stay in the family. Apparently, he has contrary ideas. He's for cap and trade. That's going to hurt farmers, our manufacturing base. It's going to drive up the cost of our power. Bruce Braley does not represent Iowa. And I tell you what, if you can elect Chuck Grassley and Bill Northey and Governor Branstad statewide, we can do another Republican too. And don't think that this is going to be impossible, because this is so doable, folks. And we can do this. We go through the questions, but you don't quite learn a lot after 3 questions. But I am a conservative. I'm God-fearing, pro-life, pro-traditional marriage. I think the Second Amendment is the most important amendment to the Constitution because it protects all the other amendments. I'm for property rights, low taxes, government control closest to the people. I think the Federal Department of Education is abysmal and needs to go. I'm conservative. I'm from the heartland, and I will take Iowa's common sense to Washington, D.C., and I will beat Bruce Braley. He's got a record. I don't. And I'd love to contrast that. Thank you very much. God bless.
That does it for the candidate. Be successful to become our next United States Senator. So thank you all for your service.
That was awesome. Thanks again, guys. Wonderful, wonderful evening. Okay, nobody goes out that door yet? We still have some fun to be had. We're going to start the hokey pokey now. And the candidates are the star of the show. So, you're gonna put your right hand in, no, I don't think they're interested. Hey, one other note, I wanna thank the Skate Palace for doing this. Isn't this an amazing facility? Absolutely wonderful. And yes, they still do skate here. So I know a couple people, numerous people came and said, they still skate here? And yes, they do. So Sheila, thank you so much. The pies, Sheila made the pies. She set up. She told me she's going to take down. It's a dream to walk in and all this is done. So I really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and start our silent auction, or not our silent auction. But before we do that, we're going to hand out the straw poll pieces of paper. Please make sure your straw poll ballot goes in the box. There will be a box that goes around. Please make sure it goes in. It will not be counted unless it goes in the box. In addition, I need somebody from each campaign to head on over here where they will count the ballots. And if you can vote as soon as possible, get it in, because we have to get that by 7 before they close out their 10 o'clock. People started at 10 o'clock. Let's see here. Oh, Cody Colbert did a wonderful job. I forgot to mention Cody Kitty from Rock Rapids. He is a husband, a dad, and a business owner, so for him to come down like this was, really appreciate that. So thank you for your doing this. My auctioneers, Bob and Chris Mason with the Sac County are going to come up and do the auction. And we're going to move quickly. So I know everybody has long drives home. So we're going to move right along with this auction. I'm going to try to do my best to explain what each item is. And I do have Jason Schultz, Matt Winchell. Okay, well, there's delivery. Jason Schultz and Matt Winchell. What? Yeah, they're bringing. Raise your hand if you got, they're coming. We got 2 people delivering them. Hopefully, they're coming. Raise your hand if you have not received a ballot.
Moving on.